Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Next Gen Racing FASTR BMW M3 League Season 20. The series that takes place on a Sunday, and it's all about racing BMW M4 Group 4 cars on GT Sport around a wide variety of circuits and seeing who comes out on top through a back-to-back set of races which can make up each round. 10 rounds in total. Who's going to come out on top by the end of it? You have to tune in and find out. Of course, we're back for round 3. I'm your host, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And today we find ourselves at the German circuit of the Nürburgring GP. An interesting circuit, a very odd circuit by comparison with what we've raced at previously, what with the fact we had Dragon Trail Gardens in round number 1, and then we had Brands Hatch GP circuit in round number 2 last time out. Albeit we're only able to race one of the two races in round number 2 at Brands Hatch due to a number of technical and connectivity related issues up and down the field. And to clarify, the second race of round number 2 will be held during the break period. So typically within this series there is a halfway point where there will be a break, and in that break we will be fitting in race number 2 of round number 2, and we'll be bringing you that live, of course. It'll be a quick fire round, but it will make up for the fact we weren't able to host it last weekend. But enough about the past, and on to today. You know the format. We get underway with qualifying at the hour, so at 2100 hours BST, that's British Summer Time, or UTC +1. It's a 10-minute qualifying session, and by the end of it, whoever comes out with the fastest time will be starting on pole for race number 1. Race number 1 is a 10-minute endurance race where we will be seeing our drivers go to the utmost, try and score the maximum number of points by, of course, finishing as close to the front as possible. And that all-important first place within each of the respective divisions, being critical in carrying them through into race number 2. But of course, race number 2, with it following immediately afterwards, is a reverse grid race. Again, another 10-minute sprint race, but the difference is if you finish first in race number 1, then you're going to be starting at the back for race number 2. Flip it over, if you finish last in race number 1, then you'll be starting at the front for race number 2. And then after that, we'll be doing some post-race interviews, and that'll be our schedule for tonight. But I can assume and presume that we're all excited and getting ready to go. Indeed, speaking to a number of the drivers beforehand today and listening down at the paddock, all of our drivers are very eager to get racing today, what with the difficulties of last weekend. Indeed, it's only fired everybody up to push even harder going into this weekend, and we'll wait to see what happens. And what with this being an Easter weekend race as well, a lot of our drivers are feeling a little bit merry down at the paddock, and indeed, they've had a good, nice extended weekend with their families, and everybody's in high spirits, which is good to hear, given the fact that everybody's spirits were relatively low due to those technical difficulties last time out. But we find a way around, and we do prevail. And I should point out, before we introduce our drivers, that our trackside steward today, and indeed our race lobby host, is NXTGEN's Reset to Track. You'll see he's got that little crown to the right-hand side of his name on the right-hand side of your screen, up towards the top right of the driver list there. Indeed, he is the top of our drivers, and he is our host and trackside invigilator should anything go wrong at any point. Enough waffling on about the setup, let's introduce our drivers once again as we consult our notes and indeed consult what exactly has happened so far over the last 2 rounds. Well, of course, we have 2 leagues available to us. We have the Alien League and we also have the Division 1 drivers. We're in Lobby 1. If you're looking to check out the Division 2 drivers, they are in Lobby 2. That'll be a separate broadcast entirely. We're not covering that here. But we start off, as always, with our Alien League drivers, and in the championship standings, after 1.5 rounds at effective, or after round 2 as it's officially known, we still see that Sparks is leading the way. Now, going into this race, Sparks being sat in the paddock right now, you may be wondering why has Sparks changed his name from VLX Sparks, last time out, the British driver, to Sparks Theory. Well, it's no drama, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry, it's not as though Sparks been kicked from VLX or anything like that. No need to spread rumours down at the paddock. Simply put, Sparks is currently taking a small break from the esports era of GT Sport and instead just focusing on doing some smaller things. And as a result of his agreement with the VLX esports racing team, he's been asked to change his name. But he's still part of that community, he's still a very important part of it, so there's no drama there whatsoever. He's just taking a small break, and that's part of his agreement with the team. So, looking at Sparks then, currently sat in the lead of the standings within the Alien Division on what is a grand total of 64 points. Sparks is holding a good position now, approximately 7 points clear of second place. Of course, we don't have the second race of round 2, which could flip things over. But Sparks, having picked up 2 wins and a 3rd place, really doing well so far and showing the mastery of form within the Alien division. He is being chased, however, by TNR Philo, the British driver who is hot on Sparks' heels on 57 points, having a good set of results so far, and indeed Philo has been the one who has been chasing down Sparks left, right and centre at both Dragon Trail Gardens and also at Brands Hatch GP. And we're expecting that form to continue in tonight, what with the fact that Philo has really been pushing the margin so far and looking to raise the game once again at the Nürburgring GP circuit, as Philo goes a little bit wide there, as is customary out of turns 4 and 5, the Mercedes arena coming to an end. So out of 57 points then, Philo is in a very comfortable position right now, albeit he's picked up that 1 second penalty for track limits there at the Mercedes arena. We saw that he cut the apex of turn 3. And he has got a good gap to 3rd place in the Alien League division at the moment, and that is held by GTP's Rick Wicks, who, when we look around the field at the moment, I believe Rick is sat in the pits. Here is the British driver, well, not the British driver, my apologies, get my nationalities mixed up already. The Dutch driver, Rick, sat in the paddock right now, just waiting to get underway, and indeed, been a bit patient here, and results have not necessarily gone his way, and we seem to have 2 packs of drivers within the Alien League at the moment, where Rick is leading the 2nd pack, currently in 3rd place on 43 points. Only 3 points clear of his main challenger right now, but Rick has had a consistent set of results, albeit perhaps not as close to the leaders of the Alien League as he would like, and he'll be looking to try and make amends tonight. In 4th place right now, and we're going to be saying hello to the driver as well in the Twitch chat, that is MMR's Luke Mitchell, and we see he's in chat. We hope you're doing well, Luke, and indeed everybody who's tuning in tonight, we hope you've had a great Easter weekend thus far and that you're all in positive spirits. I definitely am, and I hope you guys are as well, as we look forward to some more fantastic racing tonight. And we can't see that Luke Mitchell's out on circuit at the moment, and I'm not 100% sure whether he's turning up tonight. I believe he is meant to be turning up, but we will wait and find out. We haven't got that in our notes at the moment. However, to clarify, Luke, who we're not able to see on screen right now, is currently sat on 40 points in 4th place within the Alien League after having a difficult time last time out at Brands Hatch, albeit we only had the 1 race, of course, and is looking forward to getting underway with some more point scoring races in the future. And then the last of our drivers in the Alien League at the moment, currently not at the circuit as far as I'm aware, is Luke Doherty 94. Currently sat on only 13 points, having missed out entirely in round number 1, wasn't able to attend the race at Croatia, Dragon Trail Gardens. So as a result, he's got a lot of ground to make up, and we'll be looking to do so over the course of the future races. Again, we're waiting to find out whether he will be arriving down at trackside tonight. So that is our Alien League summarised, and really our Alien League, whilst they have been in a league of their own, of course they are for this series, have they been a league of their own in terms of race around on circuit? Well, definitely not. We have had a number of Division 1 drivers try to stick their fingers into the gaps and try to pick up some points as well. And of course, whilst the points are awarded separately between the 2 divisions, it is worth pointing out that track position means a lot to these guys in the Division 1, and if they can beat one of the Alien League drivers, that is going to be something which makes them feel even better and even more special come the end of the race evening. So, on that note, let's talk a little bit then about our Division 1 guys, and we start off with our Division 1 leader, and that is Martin from the United Kingdom, Martin JL09, making his way up towards turn 13 right now, indeed just going around there slowly, getting himself warmed up. Now Martin is leading by 3 points, he's on 54 points, and it has been a very closely contested Division 1 so far. Martin has been the most consistent and informed driver of the division, but of course we're only a quarter of the way into the season as of tonight, so as a result it's not a case that should have a major bearing with regards to the overall performances so far, and it's not as though Martin is in a league of his own within Division 1. Indeed, he is being hotly pursued by NXTGEN's Neutro Storm, who we'll come to shortly, but Martin going into tonight is the informed driver, and we'll be looking forward to seeing what he can achieve in that rather fetching liveried white, pink, purple and black FASTR liveried BMW M4. Now in second place in Division 1 at the moment and chasing after Martin with due haste is a Neutron Storm, the driver who runs the cars, a 95 livery based off of Lightning McQueen of course, very noticeable livery with the red and yellow patterning, and well we're on 51 points at the moment, having a good set of results as well and really trying to chase down Martin, and it's close between these two, but of course these two wouldn't be making a good competition if it weren't for the fact we also had a third driver who's breathing down their necks in Division 1 1, and this is really the story of Division 1 so far. Because we have this man here, Matthew Lambert from the United Kingdom, who has been hounding our two leaders in Division 1 and is now on 50 points. So only 1 point off of Neutral Storm and only 4 points off of Martin. Matthew Lambert being the top driver at the moment in terms of practice times with that 203.2 in this final practice session before we get underway with qualifying, and is really trying to close things down in the championship standings. He has been getting a string of results together and the momentum is massively on his side. But we'll wait and find out what Matthew's able to achieve tonight, of course, what the fact there is plenty more racing to come. Now, as we're waiting to get underway, our drivers are just having some clarification with regards to tonight's timings. There's the standard timings, of course. We're hearing down at the paddock that all of our drivers are getting themselves set. Let's hop over to our fourth place driver currently in the standings of Division 1, and that is Sir Bertus, who I believe is down in the pit lane at the moment. The Dutch driver here just sat waiting to get underway. Now, Sir Bertus is leading the mid-pack, if you will, of the Division 1 drivers, currently sat on 35 points. 15 down then on Matthew Lambert in P3, but Sir Bertus in P4 doing a very good job, having a bit of a difficult time last time out at Brands Hatch in race number 1. It just didn't seem to go his way. He found himself right in the thick of things from the word get-go. But of course there's plenty more to achieve, and Sir Bertus tonight will be looking to arrest that decline of form at Brands Hatch, albeit with only one race, and reinstating a good set of results tonight. He's being pursued, however, very closely, P5, only 2 points down, by one Gino Demmer, who I believe is not racing tonight due to some connectivity issues and technical issues. So as a result, Gino will not be out on circuit, and this is a great opportunity for Sir Bertus to try and break away from his fast pursuing rival. And on top of that as well, it's a good opportunity for some of the drivers a little bit further down in Division 1 to start to close that gap up, if not overhaul Gino, because he's not taking part tonight. And that starts with Dusk Ivor, the driver currently sat in the paddock here, the British driver with the red, blue and white livery BMW M4. Again, a very denotable livery. We'll be able to keep our eyes on that one for sure. He is joint 33 points with Gino, but due to count back is in 6th place, where Gino is in 5th place right now. And Descriver has been really in the mid-pack of Division 1 and really shown a good sense of form and also a good amount of consistency, and is looking very strong for tonight's race around the Nürburgring, and we'll be looking forward to seeing what he's able to achieve starting with qualifying. We then have to go a point down to Dcast 16, who is currently sat P7 in Division 1 standings, and is Dcast at the circuit. We do not see Dcast here, so we are waiting to find out whether he will be arriving in due course. But Dcast as well, another one of those drivers who has been finding a good amount of form and right in the thick of it as well over the course of the races thus far. Now we do take a look even further down, and we just take some notes with regards to what's happening. And we are waiting for Luke Mitchell to join tonight's race as well. So something's being clarified. I think some drivers are just having a little bit of a traffic jam and getting into lobby right now. But they will be here in the near future with 12 minutes to go before qualifying. So no panics and no worries, folks. Everybody will be here with a little bit of time. And in fact, if Luke is tuning in right now, which I believe he is looking at the live stream right now, we are just going to hop away from our camera view to show him the room ID, the lobby code in the bottom left corner of the screen, so that way he's got the visibility of it. And we will make a note and pass that around to Luke Mitchell via the paddock chat. So give us 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. We're just going to make that fix for him, and then we will get back with the introductions of our different drivers. In fact, Luke Mitchell has arrived, so we don't need to do that anymore. That's no problem at all. It's good to see Luke has arrived and will be on track. And we will, of course, come to introduce Luke Mitchell very shortly. But where were we in Division 1 then? So we were talking about Dcast, who's not currently here, and another driver who's not here right now, currently sat on 31 points in P8 in Division 1, that is Dcast 16. Only a point down, and we're wondering whether he will be here, of course, as Sparks 3 are now set a fastest lap in the final practice session. Indeed, it raises the bar for everyone with a 202.5. That's a very nice lap there from the British driver. But currently sat in P8 in Division 1 is Edge HJG. Not here at the moment on 31 points. Been finding a good amount of form, and we wait to see what he can do in the future races. And then in P9 we have a Reset to Track, who is here currently sat in the pit with the rather fetching gold plated BMW with the white roof as well. As we see, D-Cast does arrive down at the paddock. That's great to see that D-Cast will be racing tonight. And with regards to Reset to Track, it's been a very difficult couple of races. Had a very good ending to the racing at Dragon Trail Gardens in round number 1 with race 2 with that brilliant result. However, at Brands Hatch in race number 1, things just did not go his way, and he found himself in the midst of a major incident which put him all the way down and caused him to finish in dead last in Division 1. On 30 points, however, he's not far off of pursuing all the way up to Sir Bertus. The gap between P4 and P9 in Division 1 is only 5 points at the moment, so it's all to play for over the coming races. It's not as though he is out of the running yet. And last but not least of our drivers is D10 Piper, who is running around on circuit right now, is the Brit. And, well, given the fact he wasn't able to take part in round number 1, he scored 10 points in round number 2 with race 1 of round number 2 at Brands Hatch, and he'll be looking to carry that momentum forward and improve on his results tonight, of which I'm sure, because he'll want to get himself into that midfield fight for Division 1, where we've got that battle all the way from P4 down to P9, and he'll want to bring P10 into that equation as well, as he's just impeding Sparks 3 a little bit going through the Mercedes arena. But I believe Piper is on a fast lap, so Sparks will probably use this as a little bit of a warm-up with regards to running in the dirty air of another car, should he find himself behind somebody, either in qualifying, alternatively in the race. So that's our leagues introduced. As we see, D-Cast has left the room, so probably just fixing some quick connectivity issues, and Luke Mitchell is down at circuit side now, I believe, or we are waiting for the driver to get the car out on circuit. But in the meantime, we're just going to take a quick moment, well, there have been 9 minutes to go before we get underway with the racing, to introduce our main sponsor for the series, and that is, of course, FASTR, spelled F-A-S-T-R. Now, FASTR is a company which specialises in pushing the theme of motorsport across generations, whether it be older generations or younger generations, with a slight focus more towards younger generations, trying to get more and more people involved in motorsport, whether it be with regards to sim racing all the way through to actual out on track racing. FASTR is a company that is trying to spread the word of motorsport and spread the concept of motorsport careers, whether it be commentating, working as mechanics, you name it. That's something they're trying to push on the agenda sheet to try and get more and more people into the growing community. Indeed, motorsport has grown massively over the last couple of years. It's always been growing, but even during the COVID pandemic and the lockdowns that we've experienced in a number of countries, motorsport has continued to resume, whether in the simulated world, alternatively in the real world, and FASTR is trying to be at the spearhead of pushing the message that motorsport presses on, and it's a brilliant opportunity for everybody to get involved. Be sure to check them out on their website, which I'll be posting in the Twitch chat very shortly, so that way you're able to check out their message, what they do, and of course any merchandise which they do have available. They've got some fantastic merchandise, be sure to check it out. But it's going to be in the Twitch chat right now, the link. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen, and be sure to take a look at their website if you do have a spare moment. And they are our sponsor for this series. Been working with the Next Gen Racing community now for a good amount of time, and it's good to have them on board. But coming away from our sponsor and back to today, so let's take you around the circuit, and we are going to be taken around with an onboard perspective from Duskiver. Will be riding on his front bumper for the British driver. So coming into turn 1, braking at that 100 board here, and turning into turn 1, a second gear corner here, although some drivers will do it in first. Going at full width for the circuit now into the Mercedes arena. Turn 2 being one of those corners where you need to balance the throttle on the apex before absolutely slamming the throttle down hard. Our drivers are permitted to use the runoff area out of turn 2 if they so desire, before braking into turn 3. A very tight apex here when you'll keep the car to the left hand side, so you can swing it to turn 4-5. The combination of the right hander that's extended there, and you can use the full exit surface of the corner there at turn 4-5 to get the best possible run out of the arena before coming up to turn 6. Braking at the turn off area there for the shortened Nürburgring circuit before coming into turn 7. A little sequence of corners there where turn 6 sets you up very nicely for turn 7 and can provide some good overtaking opportunities. Now we've got the long run down towards the hairpin at turn 8, braking at the start of the entry curve there on the left hand side, or a little bit later in the case of the Skyver, loading the front brakes quite heavily there, you'll notice, and actually going quite deep when he came out of the corner. A number of professional drivers do treat turn 8 as a double apex corner, but we digress as we're coming up through the Schumacher S right now. Fully planted on those racing soft tyres is Duskiver as he makes his way through the Schumacher S, and all of our drivers I would expect will be going through their full throttle before breaking down into turn number 11, braking at that 100 board, using the full width of the circuit there, the little green runoff area on the entry and also at the apex curve before coming into 12, hooking it a bit tight on the apex there, but you can see the line that our drivers will want to go through. And now coming down to 13, flat out through the right hander of 13 in the long run up to the final chicane. Turns 14 and 15 lie ahead. We can see that the brake boards have been knocked out. No, they haven't. They're just coming into our shot right now. Braking at that 100 board, perhaps a little bit more before it, going a little bit too deep there, and as a result cutting over the apex curve of turn 15, which if our drivers do not get it together and put all 4 wheels beyond the curve, they'll pick up a half-second penalty, as seen there, before coming into turn 16, a hairpin style corner in 3rd gear, and then using the full width of the exit there to come across the line. Not perhaps the best of laps by Duskiver compared to what he will be wanting to achieve, but still a good example lap. And in terms of the action, as we switch to the 3rd person from our British driver, we'll expect a lot of overtaking in the long run down towards turn 1 and the braking zone. And the Mercedes arena as well, which we're coming into now, typically provides a good number of overtaking opportunities, although one of the difficulties with the Mercedes arena is the fact that when you set yourself up to go for a move, say into turn 3 here, it normally leaves you quite prone to cutback opportunities into turn 4. So our drivers will need to be wary of that, and going ultra defensive may not always be the best way to stay ahead of a driver if you can size up a cutback in the following corner. The run to turn 6 should also provide some opportunity should a driver be very close out of turn 4-5, and then into 7. Again, you can go for moves into 7, but they're typically lunge style moves and rely on the opponent in front of you and knowing that you're coming. So some drivers may go for that, but it'll be mutual respect between drivers if they do so go for it. It's better to set yourself up for the run down to turn 8 because you've got a heavy braking zone here and a lot of width on the circuit, and as you come through 8, of course, this is where you need to get your moves finished, because coming up into 9-10, the Schumacher S, you can only go 1 car at a time through the Schumacher S. If you go side by side, it is incredibly risky and normally means you're going to cost yourself a huge amount of momentum. And as we make our way out of the Schumacher S, it's best to be close behind someone, so that way you can go for the move into turn 11, which we're coming up to, the left-hander here, the medium speed left-hander. And again, it's a wide corner with quite a narrow apex, but you've got a lot of width on exit as well, meaning that you can go side by side. Turn 12, not really an overtaking opportunity unless the driver's made a mistake in turn 11, and it's a long run all the way through to turn 14, 15, the chicane, where drivers will want to size up a move up into the braking zone for turn 14. The typical overtaking point in a good number of series in the real world, and indeed we'll see it in sim racing from time to time, into turns 14, 15, and you can go ultra defensive into 14, and that'll be the way to do it. You'll need to pull to the inside. Turn 16, not really seen as an overtaking opportunity in some of the faster cars, like Group 3s or Group 2 cars, but in Group 4s, like GT4 cars and touring cars, we may be seeing some moves into turn 16, but that's how it's going to shape up over the course of a lap, so we'll be sure to keep that in mind, and indeed keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, as we're going into the race. That's where the overtaking spots will typically be, and now we're just counting down with 3 minutes to go before qualifying. Now we are waiting for some more drivers to join. We can see that Edge has arrived as well, and we will introduce DCAST 16, the British driver now on circuit, making his way into turn number 6. Now, of course, we did talk about DCAST earlier on, the fact that he has had a bit of a mixed season so far, in the fact that, well, currently sat in P7 in that Division 1 standings with 32 points in that midfield, and we'll be looking for a good set of results today to try and get ahead of Gino Derma, who is not racing tonight, of course, and to try and chase after the top 3 in Division 1. And we wish DCAST all the best, indeed all our drivers all the best in their racing tonight. As for other drivers who have arrived since we last introduced them, we now have a look at Luke Mitchell running around in the white, black and red BMW M4, with the dominant colour being white and then the secondary colour being black, the tertiary being red, making his way up towards the chicane on a warm-up lap here. Well, I think this is his first flying practice lap actually, rather than a warm-up lap, and we wish the British driver all the best tonight, of course. The fact that he's currently sat P4 in the championship standings for the Alien League, and he'll be looking to get some good points on the board today to try and chase after Rick in P3 and try and close the gap to TNR Philo and Sparks, as they both sit in P2 and P1 respectively by a significant margin. They are breaking away a bit. Now we're just looking down at the paddock, and we are seeing that some more drivers are trying to make their way in. Luke Doherty, for example, is trying to get into the lobby at the moment, but there are some technical issues ongoing which are being resolved. So we may be starting just a tiny bit later than planned, folks, but it shouldn't be too much of a delay, if that. We can see that Edge is running around on the circuit in the BMW M-Power inspired coloured livery, and the British driver here in Division 1, of course, making his way down towards turn 6 right now, and sat P8 in those championship stands on 31 points, just 1 point ahead of Reset to Track, who's P9 in the Division 1 championship standings. Now, as all of our drivers continue to make their way around the circuit, is there anything else to note? Well, besides the fact that We're expecting some intense racing. For qualifying, we are expecting a lap time somewhere in the region of the mid to low 202s. Of course, if a driver does run around with a little bit of slipstream, then we could be looking at a potential 201, a higher 201, but we'll wait and find out. And it may be the way as well that some drivers right now are just doing a little bit of what is known as sandbagging to try and hide their true pace, where they're essentially just running their car a little bit slower than perhaps would normally. So they might be lifting upon braking into a corner, or alternatively they'll be lifting on a straight just slightly, just to take a couple of temps off of their time. I add temps onto their time, I should really say, rather than take some time off. Sounds a bit odd backwards when you think about it, but just to add some time onto their lap so that way they can master their final pace. But we'll wait and see, as qualifying will be coming at you any point shortly. Now, looking around, we are waiting for Luke Doherty to be admitted to the lobby. That's the only driver who I think we're having difficulty getting into lobby right now, but otherwise everybody else is expected to be out on track, and we look forward to getting underway any time soon. And we're just going to confirm, so drivers not racing tonight. We do have Sparks, we have Philo, we have Rick, we have Mitchell, and we are expecting Luke to be here, of course. And in Division 1, we do have Martin, we have Neutro Storm, Matthew Lambert, Sir Bertus, Gino, of course, is not racing, so we should have a pack of 14 drivers once Luke has been admitted to lobby. So we're going to have pretty much almost a full field here, and, well, we're going to have some cracking racing lying ahead. That's a good point right now. If you haven't already, go grab yourself a quick refreshing drink, alternatively some snacks, because when it gets started, the action, you won't want to jump away from your screen, or it's a good time to quickly pop to the bathroom if you haven't already. And if you're in the Twitch chat and you are tuning in, be sure to say hello if you've got access to the chat. Don't be shy. It's always good to say hello and see how everybody's doing. As we see Luke Mitchell there jumping over not a curve, I should say, over a cone. A little bit of a comical glitch in GT Sport. We'll see cars Mario hop themselves, or Mario jump themselves over a cone. And we're just going to advise race control that we can see 13 drivers. And that's just us advising that we can see 13 drivers out on circuit, and Luke, once he gets his car out on circuit, will make it a grand total of 14. Now, of course, the big question you may be asking, why do we need to confirm that? Well, unfortunately, sometimes we do find in lobbies, due to people's respective connectivity, that we can have drivers who seem to disappear off the face of the earth. I.e., we may have 14 drivers, quote-unquote, out on circuit, but everybody can only see 12 drivers, and then there's some drivers who seem to disappear for some, and that can lead to some very nasty collisions between drivers. But, of course, with everybody visible right now, as we wait for Luke to get out on circuit, and here is Luke. He is just making his way out onto the circuit, which is fantastic news. So we have got 14 drivers. We are good to go, ladies and gentlemen, and Luke is here and will be looking to do his utmost tonight to get some good points on the board and start to tunnel his way in, and indeed dig his way into rising up the ranks in the Alien League. He is at the bottom, of course, having not been able to attend a number of races so far. But qualifying is about to get underway, folks. 10 minutes. Who's going to be on pole? Let's find out. So as we wait for all of our drivers to start coming out of the pits and out onto the circuit, our first driver who's going to be making their way onto the circuit, as per the usual, it would seem, will be Mr. Sparks, the British driver here, immediately charging out of the pits and trying to get himself into turn one as quickly as possible. Now, this seems to be the theme with Sparks. He does love to get himself out on circuit as quickly as possible and try to pull a little bit of distance between himself and the rest of the drivers. I think this is so he gives himself ample time to warm up the tyres, those racing soft tyres, of course, but on top of that as well, so that way he doesn't have to think about any pressure of drivers behind him in terms of them trying to use his slipstream or trying to get ahead of him, putting some pressure on him as he's coming into certain corners, for example. And it's a good philosophy because it gives himself the best possible breathing room out on circuit. Meanwhile, we can see we've got a little bit of a traffic jam starting to form further back on the circuit, coming from 5 to 6 right now out of the turns. We can see Describer right in the middle of that pack of drivers effectively, who are starting to trip over one another, and then right at the back of that pack we can see that Reset to Track right now taking his time through the Mercedes arena, and I think he's going to be playing a little bit more of a tactical play here in terms of getting himself a huge amount of space out on circuit, and will just want to do his qualifying laps without any potential slipstream or any potential risk of tripping over another driver who may be slower than him. Perhaps he's got something in the bag that we don't know about, of course. That could be the case. But we're waiting for our drivers to make their way around, of course, and we can see Neutron Storm just a little bit further back from Sparks right now, coming into turn 12 is Neutron Storm, and as he makes his way out here, getting himself set up, and it'll be a Matthew Lambert behind him, who is following quite close behind, it should be pointed out. I think Matthew's giving himself about a 1.5 to 2 second gap, so that way if Neutron does compromise his lap a little bit, or Matthew's just that little bit faster, perhaps he'll be able to catch some slipstream going down in the run to the chicane. But speaking of hot laps coming up right now, rather than run with our first driver around today, we are actually going to ride on board with a Neutron Storm and see what the Dutchman's able to achieve as he comes out the final corner then and onto his first flying lap. So shifting up the gears at this point, coming up into 5th gear, what the short gearing of the BMW M4 machinery, with it being a 7-speed semi-automatic gearbox, of course, with the flappy paddles, and making his way in towards turn 1. Pulling an odd line there, not running it all the way to the edge initially, in fact straightening the braking zone as much as possible into turn 1, and now coming across into turn 2, flicking the car to the right before flicking it back to the left, and going very deep into turn 2, and having to collect the car, in fact, but collecting it well there. That's going to cost him about 2 to 3 attempts, and a deep line into turn 3. Not a good start by Neutron Storm is this, as he's making his way through turns 4 and 5. He's having a very difficult start to his opening flying lap, and I think this is going to see his time quite down on what some other opponents may be able to do. But as he comes into turn 6 then, making it nicely and cleanly through turn 6, and into turn 7 he goes, tucking it in on the apex there. A very nice apex line coming out of turn 7. That's what you want. You want a nice tight line, so that way you can get on the power as soon as possible and throw the car to the outside before running it all the way down towards turn number 8, snapping hard on the brakes here, and you're going to see he's going to be stamping down into 3rd gear. A little bit of understeer carrying the car forward there, and as a result he's not able to get the car collected for the apex. Perhaps needed to do a little bit of a downshift towards 2nd there, but it seems as though he's got the car controlled once again, and now making his way up through the Schumacher S. Full pelt through the Schumacher S, as all of our drivers will be here. They've got the speed and the aero to do it, albeit our cars are not running that much aero. It's more about the fact they're not as intense in terms of their speed as GT3 cars, but nonetheless we digress as he makes his way out of turn 11 and into turn 12 using the full width of entry into turn 12. A very nice turn 12 there, and that is a very clean line at 132.4 at that point after sector 3. This isn't going to be the best of the laps, but it's still a reasonable lap. He's recovering this lap very well. It is Neutron Storm as he makes his way to the chicane, then braking at that 100 board, slamming it down the gears, and and we see Matthew Lambert. Oh goodness me, I think Matthew there was a little bit exuberant, and there are going to be some words between the two drivers because that was very unfortunate. And well, we can see that Sparks Fury has set the provisional pole of a 202.7, but Neutron Storm will be wondering what's going to happen there as we see Philo goes for a move on Martin into the final corner, and I think Neutron Storm is going to be absolutely infuriated with what happened there. And Philo coming across the line on a 203.8 and Martin on a 206.3. A number of our drivers really tripping over one another so far, and Luke Mitchell going provisional P3, well provisional P4 now, a 205.1. D10 Piper meanwhile with a 204.8, and Rick from GTP now coming up to a 204.1. Now the big question of course at this point will be, as a number of drivers reset themselves to the pits, is were they able to actually get a proper lap in, or will they compromise running in the traffic of other drivers? As we see that Luke Mitchell apologises to Decast, so something has happened between those two there whilst we were following Neutron Storm around, and we can see Luke Doherty right now in provisional P7 with a 205.8. I think a lot of drivers here have really had a difficult opening flying lap, and as we continue to look around the field, the big question I'd be asking myself right now if I'm one of these drivers: would it not be better if I just ran in some clear air and got a banker lap in? Because surely a number of drivers having compromised. As we see Luke Mitchell pulls over to the right hand side to let Luke through in the run down towards turn 8. Indeed, D10 Piper is going to follow him through as well as he makes his way in towards turn number 8. Nicely done in second gear here by Luke, and as he puts his foot down on the power, making his way up the hill now, the long run up here, you can see he's already a tenth faster than his previous best, and I think that's what's happened here, folks. A lot of drivers have had a very difficult opening flying lap, because they've all been bunched up too close together. Now, we do have just under half the session to go, 4 minutes to go, so our drivers will be on for 2 more flying laps if they're able to get round before that timer comes down to approximately 2 minutes 10, and that means we've got plenty more laps and plenty more improvement to come as we see that Sparks Fury has returned to the pits. But right now, in terms of our drivers who are making their way around to complete another lap, which we're going to try and find the driver who's at the lead of the pack and indeed hasn't set a lap so far, and that is Matthew Lambert. After what happened where he's on a flying lap, that will explain why, because he immediately returned to the pits after the incident between himself and Neutron. But Neutron now coming out the final corner. This is definitely going to be improvement. It looks as though it's going to be a 205.3, putting in provisional P7 as Philo improves to a 203.5. Philo making a huge gain there on his second flying lap, and that goes to show you that everybody was tripping over one another on that opening lap, with Luke Doherty as well improving to a 205.3, setting him provisional P8 so far. And Rick, what can he do now on this next lap? We're going to jump on board with the Dutchman as he goes around then for another flying lap. He's currently sat, of course, on what is a 204.1, which is 6/10 down on provisional P2, held by Philo, and 1.4 seconds down on our provisional pole sitter, Sparks. So as Rick goes onto this lap then, of course, the Alien League driver making his way down, and Matthew Lambert coming out the pits. He won't be in the way at all, and you can see Rick taking a very wide line into turn 1, as wide as he possibly can, running it out to the full width of the circuit there, which is the ideal line because you get the best possible turning arc for turn number 1. And now turning it through turn 2 and staying in third gear, and very collective there on the throttle. Nicely done by Rick before coming into the turn 3 part of the arena, and you can see running over that apex curve as much as possible. As long as he keeps 2 wheels on the red and white curbing, or on those white lines that denote the track limits, he'll be fine. He won't be picking up that half-second penalty. A good arena by Rick, and immediately proven by half a second. So Rick definitely on a much better lap here, and I think perhaps he was compromised in the traffic situation on his first flying lap, and now making his way through turn number 7. Nicely collected there. You do have to wonder if he should have been in third gear there. He seemed to stumble over the upshift there, and that's cost him a tiny bit of time, perhaps half a tenth for the additional upshift. Well, the fact we've got twin clutch gearboxes here, it does mean that these gears do shift very quickly, but of course you don't want an unnecessary gear shift if you don't need to have one. And he's 5 tenths up still, but he didn't really improve in Sector 2, so a bit of a difficult Sector 2 for Rick there. And it did look a little bit scrappy with those gear changes, but still, it is improving. The Dutchman is doing a very nice job so far, and we wait and see what he can do at the end of Sector 3. Breaking into turn 11 then, making his way in, and getting that rotation with an apex downshift there. You'll see that loosened the rear end of the car and got rid of the understeer and converted it into a small amount of oversteer, which was perfect for the run out. And in fact, he's improved by 3 tenths in Sector 3, and this is looking a very strong lap as we hear that Martin JL09 has improved to a 204.6, putting in provisional P5. Edge has improved to a 205.4, but staying with Rick right now to the end of his lap. He's got 1 sector to go, getting it very planted into the chicane there and carrying a lot of momentum across as Luke Mitchell goes provisional P3 of a 203.8. And as we switch to third person and Rick comes around the final corner, what's it going to be? I think this might be a second up on his previous best, which would put him right in the hunt for provisional P3, and it is a 203 point. Well, my goodness, that is a 203.2, putting in provisional P2. The Dutchman is on a flyer, and Sparks right now still 4.5 tenths up the road, maybe looking in his rearview mirrors with 1 more flying lap to go for all of our drivers here, and we can see that Philo is 3 tenths down now in provisional P3 and only 2.5 tenths ahead of Luke Mitchell. So it is tightening up between our Alien League drivers who are holding on to the top 4 positions right now. Deskyver, meanwhile, our lead League 1 driver on a 204.4 and not improving in Sector 1 on his final flying lap. So I think Deskyver here is the one to beat for a lot of drivers, and it's going to be a hunt for a provisional P5 in that art. And we can see that Martin right now, who is leading Division 1, is quite close behind, only 1.5 tenths down. And as we continue to ride with the British driver here, looking at his car externally, we can see that 204.6 could be improved. Let's wait and find out what he's able to achieve. He is going to be our first driver to complete their final qualifying lap for today's races. And we'll see as he comes out of Sector 3, he is not improving at the moment, but he's pretty much matching his previous best. So it's all going to come down to that final sector and what he's able to achieve. Now, surely in Martin's case, you've got to go for broke here and just simply brake as late as you possibly can for the chicane. He's going to do so, flicking the car in and taking the best possible straightening line through the chicane before going up into second gear, up into third gear, I should say, up into fourth gear, and now 1 corner awaits. Is this going to be an improvement, or is it going to be a case that he's going to be stuck with provisional P6? And as he comes out the final corner, it is going to be a 204.3, moved in provisional P5. But what about the guys behind? Can he improve? As we see, they all start to come across that timeline. Neutron Storm improves to a 204.4. Luke Mitchell comes across and does not improve. A lot of drivers are not improving at this point, although Sir Bertus improves to a 205.5, which puts him provisional. What is P11? It's not a great lap from Sir Bertus. And as we look further around, we see Rick now coming out of the final corner. Can Rick potentially dethrone Sparks with a even better lap? We'll wait and find out as he comes out of the final corner. It's not an improvement. And what about Matthew Lambert? Matthew Lambert goes provision. Well, P2. Matthew Lambert improving by a huge margin. A 202.9 and only 2 tenths off of Sparks, who right now is coming to the final corner. Now, will Sparks be able to hold on to pole? I think he's done what he needs to do, but let's see what he's able to achieve as he comes out the final corner. It is going to be a 202.5, shattering expectations and nailing the lap. So Sparks will be the man on pole, unless we've missed anybody, but I think we've covered everyone. As we look around our field, we can see Luke Doherty not improving from that 205.3, and as a result, we'll be starting at P10. And, well, I don't think we've got any more drivers to come around. As Reset to Track rounds off our qualifying and does improve to a 205.3, and Sparks 3 takes pole. So as we wind down to the grid then for race number 1, Sparks on your right, Matthew Lambert on the left, TNR Philo behind Lambert of course, and Rick behind Sparks. Who's going to be able to pull it off into turn 1 with the rundown in the slipstream? Let's wait and find out. And it's lights out, and away they go, and Sparks getting a good start, as did Lambert, but behind them you can see that Philo got a much better start initially than Luke Mitchell, and as a result is going up into P3 immediately, and as all our drives Concertina down into turn 1, it's going to be a battle on the brakes between Philo and Luke Mitchell, but I think Philo's going to have the line, as Luke goes a little bit deep, and further behind, we can see that Martin has jumped up into P5, and is contesting Luke Mitchell already for P4, and in the braking into turn 3, who's going to be the bolder one on the brakes, as we see Luke goes very wide and very deep into the corner and now finds himself in a defensive battle, but Luke falls down and Descriver going round there. Oh, and there's contact between Descriver and Neutron Storm, and we'll have to find out what happened there as Descriver is spun completely round, and that is a disaster for the British driver. Martin and Luke still battling into turn 7, and you can see that Martin on the inside, Luke on the outside, and Luke getting the better run because Martin can't extend the corner. So Luke Mitchell feeling a lot of pressure from our leading Division 1 driver going into turn 8, and I think it's going to settle down a little bit now as they make their way to the Schumacher S. But behind them, of course, Neutron Storm with that 1 second penalty for a track limit infringement in the Mercedes arena, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of words with regards to what happened between himself and Descriver coming out of turn 4-5, and we will take a look at that very shortly for you, ladies and gentlemen. Reset to Track behind him right now and chasing him down with Sir Bertus in P8. Behind them, D10 Piper right now having to fend off the charging storm of Edge HJG, but Edge is not close enough as they go into turn 12, and you can see that D10 Piper is already creating a little concertina and traffic jam of cars behind him right now as they're all trying to trace their way up the field. But Sparks still leading at this point in time, but looking further back, we can see that coming up into the chicane for the first time asking, Luke Mitchell in a very comfortable spot versus Martin. And I think that early drama where our Alien League drivers were being pushed quite hard is now starting to settle down. So as they come to the end of lap number 1, coming out the final corner, it is Sparks Theory leading from Matthew Lambert by the distance of 2.5 tenths. Then it's TNR Philo followed by Luke Mitchell, and then Martin in P5, followed by Neutron Storm and Reset to Track. Sir Bertus in P8 right now. As we see, we cut away from our rear drivers and see Sparks Theory going to go defensive into turn 1 versus Matthew Lambert. Matthew Lambert goes to the cutback, but Sparks parks it on the apex and says, "You shall not pass, Matt. You're going to have to try and find another way round." And Matthew Lambert is putting a huge amount of pressure on Sparks right now as they come into turn 3 for the second time of asking. And you can see as we ride on board with the British driver chasing after Sparks that Matthew is really excelling and enjoying putting this pressure on the driver who is leading the Alien League by a significant margin right now. And we can see that Matthew is just simply atoning to the attrition of this race and doing a very good job of keeping Sparks honest, as Philo will need to try and find his way into that fight, having gained 4 tenths in the fight between Matthew and Sparks. That gap between Philo and Matthew now down to half a second, whereas it was at the start of this lap 9 tenths. we look further back, of course, and we notice that there's been a major incident. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. There has been a huge incident further back. We're not going to be able to see what happened immediately, but we can see that Sir Bertus has made his way up into P7, and we're going to look back and find out now what happened exactly. So it looks as though coming into turn 7, well, Bertus was just up into P7, but a driver got knocked wide, and there was some dust kicked up out of what was turn number 7. No, my apologies. It looks as though it was just simply Luke Doherty going wide. I thought there might have been an incident there, but meanwhile, as we look back to live cameras, D-Cast going around the outside of Rick into turn 11 and picking up P10 right now. And Rick, it would seem, has really dropped down the order and had a disastrous opening couple of laps, as he is just feeling a lot of pressure right now. And then we look to Rick's car, and he's in a battle with Luke Doherty for P11 as they come through turn 13 up into 14. It's Rick on the inside, braking hard and going defensive, squeezing Luke as much as he possibly can, and ahead of him we can see that it's going to be a penalty for D10 Piper as he has cut turn 15 by looks of things, and he's on a half-second penalty now, and he will need to burn that in the near future. But meanwhile, up front, we hop back to our lead drivers right now. We can see that Sparks has started to pull a little bit away from Matthew Lambert. The gap now up to half a second, much wider than it was on the previous lap. It's doubled, and Lambert is trying to start a campaign to get past Sparks once again, and Philo not able to capitalise on this as he sends one of the innocent little cones flying out of turn 1. Luke Mitchell right now, though, falling away from our top 3 in P4 and not really able to contest. And with Martin Jallo 9 behind him, he won't want to lose pace to Martin, because Martin would love to put one over Luke Mitchell. I'm sure. Neutron Storm in P6 in a bit of a quiet zone, but looking back, Reset to track right now, seemingly starting to put a bit of a cork in the bottle for the rest of our drivers trying to come through to the higher positions. Reset to track being the lead driver of our midfield pack, with our top 6 breaking away. And as we look further behind, we can see that D-Cast trying to look for the move on the inside of D10 Piper into turn 6, and it wasn't going to happen, but it's compromised his momentum into turn 7, and now Luke Doherty is all over the back of the British driver, his fellow countryman. In fact, we've got 3 Brits running line astern into turn 8. Who's going to lead coming out of the corner? It looks like it's D10 at the moment, as D-Cast goes to the move on the inside, and D10 just parks the car in the middle of the circuit, blocking off D-Cast's move, and you can see Luke Doherty is going to try and capitalise on this. It's 3 wide coming up the hill to the Schumachers, and they immediately all settle down. But I say that, and D-Cast tries to look for a move up the inside into the start of Schumacher S, but D10 says, surely D-Cast, you're not going to go for it, and Cast backs out of it. He just knows there is no way through there. As we can see, there's a move into turn 11, there's double move into turn 11, and it is Luke Doherty who has made his way up into P11 versus Rick for the time being, but Rick now tries to force his way down the inside of Luke into turn 12. He does it, and Edge now tries to find a way through as well, and Edge is side by side with Luke coming through turn 13 as they make their way down towards turn 14. Who is going to concede P11? It's Rick on the inside. Here goes to the right side, and it's Luke now on the inside. Luke goes to the snap brake maneuver. He gets one, and there's been some major contact because D10 has been reset coming out of the chicane. We'll find out what happens shortly, folks, but D10 has dropped out, and Luke Doherty now up into P10 and D-Cast up into P9. It's all happening with 3 minutes 40 to go. Up front, Sparks Fury has started to break away from Matthew Lambert, and now Lambert has got a face full of TNR Philo in his mirrors. Well, how about that? Philo will be sizing this up and thinking, right, Lambert, I'm going to have a piece out of you because you got away at the start, but I want that second place. I want to put pressure on my championship rival. You're not in this. Meanwhile, Luke Mitchell in P4 just not closing up. As we look further back, we can see that Reset to Track and Neutron Storm just seemingly alone in P6 and P7, just not seeming to catch up to anyone, and really is further back as Sir Bertus has broken away from the chase in mid-pack, so it is spaced out a bit, and the pack right at the back now. D-Cast still being pressured massively by Luke Doherty as they come out of turn 4-5 and now run up towards 6, and we can see that Luke Doherty is going to the inside, and D-Cast simply gives him the place by looks of things. I think he didn't have an answer to that and realises that Luke is the faster driver, now up into P9, but Luke's got a long way to go to catch up to the rest of his Alien League opponents right now, as he is in a different league versus D-Cast, where D-Cast being the Division 1 driver here, and is now trying to hold off Edge as he makes his way into turn 8, very late on the brakes there, and in fact goes sideways through turn 8, and Edge will be looking for a move surely up into turn 11. But whilst we're waiting for that to unfold, we're going to take a look back at what happened to D10 Piper on the previous lap, on lap number 3. So in the run down towards turn 14-15 then, you're going to see that D-Cast is going to go for a move, I reckon, into the corner. And was it a case that he tried to force the move? Indeed, and D10 turning in there. And I don't think he recognised the fact that D-Cast was on his inside going for the braking move. I think that was a bit of a racing instant there, folks, based on what we can see of the camera angle. We'd need to check braking points and everything along those lines. But I'm not a steward, I'm just a commentator. But it definitely seems as though the altercation between those two drivers is going to carry on after the race there. As we come onto the final lap then, and it is Sparks leading by 1.5 seconds ahead of Matthew Lambert, who has got TNR Philo getting closer and closer as we jump to the onboard of Philo. But Philo has picked up a 1 second penalty for his troubles. So that means he will need to pass Lambert, but also burn that penalty, alternatively get past Lambert and then clear him by a gap of a second in order to take home that P2. So if I was in Philo's shoes right now, I'd probably think to myself that we just need to calm it down and simply settle for that P3, because you're not going to be able to find a way past Lambert that quickly, or try and find somewhere where you can burn it before a braking zone and then go hunting after Lambert on the rest of the lap. But it's not looking good for Philo right now as we take a look away from them. Luke Mitchell and Martin have cleared one another and now are in 4th and 5th respectively, and we see further back that Reset to Track is really closing up to the back of Neutron Storm. The two NXTGEN racing drivers here representing the official community getting closer and closer out to the circuit. The two Dutchmen won't want to take too much out of one another because of the fact they've had a good race so far. And in the battle for P8, we can see that Luke Doherty has finally passed Sir Bertus, but remembering the fact that Bertus right now running with that 4/10 of a second penalty will need to make sure that Edge doesn't close up. And we see further back, I think that Deskyver has got the move done for P11 versus D-Cast, or has he? What is D-Cast getting closer and closer to the back of Deskyver as they go into turn 8, and I think Deskyver will have it here. But we're just going to take a quick look back and see how the move was done. Well, as we look back then, we can see that Deskyver had the legs on D-Cast, but D-Cast tried to go around the outside into turn 6, and Deskyver went later on the brakes than D-Cast into turn 7 and used that exit curve there to give himself the grip and the momentum down into turn 8, and indeed the slipstream of Edge as well. So Deskyver playing it very smart there. But meanwhile, talking about smarties and the ones who are pulling it off right now, the sparks are flying for one British driver as he comes through the final corner on lap number 5 to complete race 1. Your race winner, ladies and gentlemen, will be the United Kingdom's Sparks Fury by 2.9 seconds ahead of Matthew Lambert, who has held off TNR Philo in the drag race to the finish line, and Philo, of course, burning that penalty. Luke Mitchell coming home in P4 ahead of Martin JLL9, and Martin will be happy with that P5, and Neutron Storm hold on a second. I think Reset to Track has jumped Neutron Storm due to a penalty to P6, and then in P8 it will be Luke Doherty ahead of Sir Bertus, and then Edge in P10 followed by Deskyver, and then D-Cast will come home in P12, D10 Piper in P13 with that 2 second penalty, which won't be any issue, and GTP's Rix. Well, I don't know what happened here, but he is well down on the lap, and I think there has been some sort of altercation which has caused Rick to have a major incident, because he is half a lap down right now, and I do not think this is a happy place for Rick, in the fact that he's got to make his way around the circuit. And there were a lot of incidents, of course, over the course of this race, particularly on the opening lap, and also a couple more major incidents on laps 2 and 3. And well, Rick is just making his way around right now and just simply coasting to the finish line. So not a good opening race for Rick tonight, and I'm sure the Dutchman will be grateful for the fact this does mean he starts on pole for race number 2, and he will want to utilise that to try and break away from everyone. Because keeping in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that with Rick being one of the Alien League drivers, he will be the last finishing position of our Alien League guys, as well as the last position out on circuit, as he's making his way to the conclusion right now, and that means he will need to make up for this lost ground in race number 2 tonight. But a cracking set of battles up and down the field. I think some of those battles, however, were a little bit on the side of more of a destruction derby than some of the cleaner racing that we come to expect, but that will be discussed in the stewards room after the race as Rick completes our order. Congratulations to all of our drivers, of course, but most importantly, congratulations to our race winner, Sparks Fury from the United Kingdom. So, with race 1 complete, subject to any stewards' inquiries, of course, here are your final results. Sparks Fury are bringing it home straight from the front in pole position and leading every lap, bringing it home in P1. 3.1 seconds clear of Matthew Lambert in the end, who held on to that wonderful second place ahead of TNR Philo. Matthew trying to put that pressure on Sparks through, but in the end having to hold off pressure from TNR Philo. Rounding off our podium did Philo. P4 went to Luke Mitchell, will be happy with that result, I'm sure, and P5 to Martin Jallo 9, rounding up our top 5. The fastest lap being a 2:02.613 as set on lap number 4 by Sparks, almost matching his qualifying time in race trim. Well, how about that? But now we have got a 5-minute break whilst we're waiting for race number 2 to commence. So be sure just to take a quick breather. And this gives us an opportunity, of course, to log the results from tonight's race. So all's fair as we just start taking our notes. So give us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, and then we'll be back with you. Alrighty, folks, well, that's our results table updated for future reference. And as we hop back to trackside, the one driver who I think we should shine a little bit of a spotlight on right now is this man right here, Matthew Lambert. Now, do keep in mind that the British driver is racing as part of the Division 1 guys rather than the Alien League, but you wouldn't think that given the fact that he was so close and putting pressure on Sparks and indeed holding off TNR Philo there in race number 1. And I really think for the case as we get a time of day change and we also switch to the reverse grid, I think that Matthew Lambert is really the one to watch right now, and you do have to wonder whether he'll end up being in the Alien League in the near future, because the pace that he's showing today is definitely phenomenal pace, and well, it is rewarded in his results, albeit he's currently P3 in the championship standings for Division 1, but based on that result alone, he is moving right into contention versus Martin for P1. But we've got a lot of distance to go, of course, and we've got one more race tonight. That's not to discredit the other drivers as well. And Martin there, of course, bringing home that P5 and therefore a P2 for the Division 1 guys. It's going to be close between them and, well, Neutro Storm doing a good job bringing home what was, in the end, that, as we double check, because of the penalty that was applied, bringing home what was that P7 and effective P4, just behind his community teammate, albeit they're not teammates for the purposes of this championship, Reset to Track, who picked up the P3 in the Division 1 group with that P6. Now, things we also noticed, everybody had a relatively clean run into turn 1 this time round. And I think our drives were quite well rehearsed going into turn 1. It was the case that they're anticipating there was going to be a lot of argy-bargy into the wide entry point of turn 1. Into race 2, however, well, that's where things might get a little bit more fisticuffy in the fact that we have that reverse grid now for one driver in particular who will be absolutely overjoyed at the fact we've got that reverse grid. Well, it's going to be this man here, the Dutchman of GTP's Rick WRX, in the fact that given the fact he finished dead last and finished at the back of the field in race number 1, and indeed the back of not just the field but of the Alien League, he'll be on course to start right at the front, well away from his rivals in the Alien League, and he can pick up a huge amount of points here compared to them if they're unable to fight their way through the field. So that's the one thing I think Rick will be thinking about right now, is that he does have a golden opportunity to simply run away with this and force Sparks and the other guys in the Alien League to catch up to him. They will have to literally fight their way through the order as quickly as possible, as we are going to be getting underway very shortly, by the sounds of things, with race number 2 of tonight. As we take a very quick sip of our water, of course. Remember to stay hydrated, ladies and gentlemen. And we're just following Martin right now as he makes his way through what is turn number 12, and down towards turn 14 he goes. Riding on board, riding on the roof of his car with the camera that's set up right in the dead centre of the roof. Quite conservative with that line there as he makes his way across the chicane's apex curbs. We can see Luke Mitchell there parking the car up on the circuit on the entry to turn 16. I think that put Martin off a little bit, but Martin has company made his way around. And we're about to get underway then, ladies and gentlemen, with race number 2 this evening. Place your bets. It's a reverse grid race. Let's see who wins by the end of the 10 minutes. So as we pan down to the grid then, it's GTP's Rick on the right-hand side, and on your left-hand side, a D10 Piper. Behind them, a D-Cast and Diskyver. But keep your eyes on the back 4. What are they able to do? Starting right at the back with the pace potential. It's green and it's go, go, go for all of our drivers. We see a lot of wheel spin. Everybody getting a very enthusiastic, applying the throttle as soon as possible. But Rick makes a very clean getaway in P1. And you can see behind him already Diskyver going to the outside into turn 1 and trying to cut his way around D10 Piper. But Sir Bertus tries to chop his way in. A lot of drivers going wide. And Diskyver is spun out. That is a disaster for Diskyver. And it is a repeat of race 1 for Diskyver, where it just went wrong. And we can see already that up front, Sir Bertus, having made that very incisive move into turn 1 on the inside, is chasing after it. The Dutchman chasing after his fellow countryman like an angry wasp to a human being's arm. And behind him, D10 has gone very wide and off the circuit coming out of turn 5. Not sure what's happened there. There was some contact, I think, between himself and one of the other drivers. But as they make their way through turn 6, then we can see Neutron Storm and Philo. Well, how on earth has Philo got up to P4 already? And he's side by side with Neutron Storm into turn 8. And as they go into the braking zone here, it's going to be a battle on the brakes, a battle on the confidence. And Neutron still goes very deep. And Philo says, "Thank you very much, Neutron. I'll just simply cut up your inside here and go for the cutback." But the problem is now, who's going to back out into the Schumacher S? Will it be Philo and Neutron? Neither one wants to give way, and Neutron hooks it on the apex curve. But I think Philo just about held on. He had the grip. The tyres were in their operating window. And that means Philo is now away. And Luke Mitchell and Matthew Lambert have both got themselves past. But as they come into turn 11, Luke on the inside, Matthew on the outside. But the cutback will be into turn 12 with Matthew now on the inside. And I think Luke's got to give up that ground and close the door quickly on Neutron Storm, who is trying to get down his inside. And now they're all running down towards the chicane as we hot to our leaders, and we can see that Rick has cleared everyone and Luke Doherty up into P2, but behind them it's going to be a battle on the brakes of P5 as we see Luke Mitchell is sandwiched between Matthew Lambert, who's on the inside, Neutron Storm on the outside, and Lambert has got the move done. It's a 2-for-1 special from the British driver, and now he's up into 5th and chasing after 4th. So at the end of lap number 1, a very, very fighty lap 1. It is Rick ahead of Sir Bertus, who's side by side with Luke Doherty running out of turn 16. The TNR Philo behind them, followed by Matthew Lambert, who's got a half-second penalty for his troubles. Luke Mitchell behind in Neutron Storm in P7, D-Cast in P8 as we look towards our leaders, and Sir Bertus goes defensive on the middle side of the circuit into turn 1, and you can see that Luke Doherty and Philo did a reverse Moses, and both picked up the places. I've never seen that in all my life of motorsport, simulated or real, but the two of them literally says, you know what, you take one side, I'll take the other, and we'll take both places. How's that sound? But they're fighting amongst each other, and Luke Doherty will be reveling in this, and finally he's having an opportunity to be up in the podium spots. The Alien League driver is now charging away, and he's got Philo behind him, and you can see that Bertus has picked up a 1-second penalty for track limits at the Mercedes Arena. That's a disaster for the Dutchman, who tries to find his way on the inside of Philo to turn 7, but there's no space for him as Luke Doherty gets it all sorts of wrong coming out to 7. That's going to cost him a momentum. And then the run down to turn 8, Matthew Lambert's going to go to the inside versus Sir Bertus. I think Bertus at this point has realised, you know what, it's time to give it up. But someone who's not giving it up right now is Luke Doherty and Philo. They're both battling for P2 still as they come out of turn 8, but they back it down into turn 9, turn 10 with Luke leading the pair up towards it. And this is giving Rick a huge opportunity to pull away. Rick, of course, having started on pole for the reverse grid race, is now 4.2 seconds up the road as Philo goes to the inside into turn 11, and he's got the move done. Or has he? Will Luke try and go for the cut back into 12? Philo gives him the space, but the space is not utilised. Oh, I say that, and there was contact on the rear of Philo's car, and Philo just about catches it, and Luke immediately backed out of that. Great respect shown between the two drivers as we look back from Philo's car right now. Oh, I say we'll look back in a bit. Our cameraman's having a bit of an effort trouble there, but we see that Philo is making his way through the chicane nice and sound here. And as we look back from Philo's car, well, how about that after 2 laps? Philo going from pretty much the rear of the field up into P2, and now he's got to chase down Rick with approximately 3 laps to go, and I think he could do it, ladies and gentlemen, given how much Philo is on fire. Well, bar my biscuit, this has been one heck of a race already, and we're not even at the halfway point. Matthew Lambert in P3, of course, and now Sir Bertus is starting to be reeled in by the rest of the field. Luke Mitchell, the first one who's got him on the hit list, and Luke just simply says, I'll pass you into turn 1 and I'll take the space, thank you very much. And with the place secured, now there's the traffic jam of cars with Sparks trying to make his way up through the field, and Sparks being the one who hasn't made as much ground compared to the others. There's a bit of contact into turn 3, but Sparks at the inside. I think Bertus is realising, although I say that, Bertus is not giving it up yet, and Sparks goes a bit wide out 4-5 with the contact of Bertus on his inside door panel there, but I think it's all cleaned up as they make their way down towards turn 6-7, and indeed Sparks has cleared Sir Bertus in the end. So Sparks up to P5, and now Bertus, who's gone into the back of Sparks, and Sparks catches the car, and Sir Bertus immediately applies the brakes and stays clear. And you can see the respect and sportsmanship shown there as Luke Doherty in P5 right now has fallen down the order. Now I'm not sure what's happened to Luke, but he has lost a lot of places. Let's find out. Well, he was down in P7, in fact, and I think, well, Luke's had a mistake somewhere. We didn't catch it on camera, but he picked up the 2 places, so Luke's had a bit of a disaster. But meanwhile, we look back up front, and Rick is 4.8 seconds clear of Philo, and Philo is starting to pull away from Matthew, and Philo is not closing down Rick by any margin right now. In fact, Rick has opened that gap up even more. I think the Dutchman may have this, ladies and gentlemen, but we're not going to count it yet, because it's not over until the fat lady sings, as the good old proverb goes. But meanwhile, Luke Doherty behind in P5. Well, Sparks Theory is chasing him down. These 2 Alien League drivers at the opposite ends of the table right now in the Drivers' Championship. And you can see that Sparks is sizing up a move on his rival, but his rival goes defensive to the inside, coming up into the turn 14-15 chicane. And Luke Doherty parks on the apex there, and Sparks has not got away through, as Sparks gets it a little bit snap oversteer through turn 15. And in the run up to 16, Sparks is on the inside. Luke just shuts the door on him before Sparks is able to get onto that racing line. And that means that Luke is ahead for the end of lap 3. But I think there's going to be a move down into turn 1, and looking further back we can see it as battles go. The battle for P8 is raging on right now, with Neutron Storm ahead of Reset to Track. These two have been fighting one another in race 1, and they're doing it again in race 2, and you can see Reset to Track being forced to go to the outside here into turn 1. Is he going to follow it round the outside? Well, Neutron Storm squeezes him out, and Reset to Track loses that momentum into turn 2. Neutron Storm using his defensive masterclass there that we saw back at Dragon Trail Gardens, albeit I think he's reined it in a little bit because there was a little bit of weaving last time up. But still, as the driving goes on here, we've got a driver parked in the pits. I think there's some issues with the car for one of our drivers. We'll find out who that is shortly for you. It is D10 Piper. There's been some issues with the car, and I think that's going to be a retirement. That is a disaster for the British driver. They can't get the car fixed. But meanwhile, up front, Philo being reeled in a little bit by Lambert once again, and it's the reverse of what we saw in race 1, and we'll keep our eyes on that. But meanwhile, in the battle for P5, it rages on lap 4 into turn 8, and Sparks on the inside, Luke on the outside. It's a battle on the brakes, and Sparks will try and park it on the apex, and he does so admirably, and it means that Luke now has got to try and get the momentum out of 8 up into the Schumacher S, and I think it's a foregone conclusion here that Luke will have to settle in behind, but he may come back at Sparks into turn 11. Meanwhile, behind these guys, Neutron Storm forming a bit of a traffic jam now, holding off Reset to Track, and Edge, meanwhile, who is in P10, trying to close in on this as they make their way up towards turn 11, and he looks to the inside of Reset to Track, but he's not close enough to go for the move, and I don't think Reset to Track was going to give him the space to go from that far back. He's half a second back, and there's no way he's going to be giving it that space. But as they make their way down towards turn 13 and up towards 14-15, we see up ahead that Matthew Lambert is still not close enough to go for the move on Philo. Philo's doing enough right now, and in that battle for P8, everybody's calming down a little bit, everyone's spaced out, and Edge goes a bit deep into the chicane here, and I think that's going to cost him the momentum, as D-Cast also goes very deep and has to burn a penalty as well, and he uses an opportunity to burn his penalty by going deep. So a 2-for-1 manoeuvre by D-Cast there in terms of being a bit of a strategist. As they make their way down towards the start-finish line to begin the final lap, then we can see in that battle for P8, Neutron Storm with Reset to Track. Reset to Track trying to find his way round on the outside into turn 1. Neutron Storm going defensive on the inside as we've seen before, but will Reset to Track go for the cutback this time? And he does. He executes the cutback. Can he seal the deal? And Neutron Storm says, no, you can't seal the deal. And he parks on the apex of turn 2. Reset to Track's going to have to try and make a move into turn 3 if he wants that place, but I don't think it's going to happen as Neutron Storm immediately collects it to the inside, and he holds it on that apex and Resets the Track, just cannot find his way through. The two Dutchmen going at it, hammer and tongs throughout, but it's all clean and respectful so far as they make their way down towards turn 6, and we can see that Neutron Storm again on the inside. Reset to Track has got the momentum, he just hasn't got the place on the inside to get the move done, and he's really having to hold off the Dutchman is Neutron Storm, but he's doing everything he needs to right now. Meanwhile, up front, Philo is being pressured right now by Matthew Lambert. That gap, the closest it's ever been. It's 4 Thames as we see coming down into turn 8. Coming back to our battle for P8, there's no change, and Reset to Track is a bit further back right now as we see Edge cannot close up to these guys fast enough to potentially capitalise on them battling one another. Discover in P12 and Martin Jallo9 has gone off at what is turn number 6, and to turn 7 he's had to rejoin. But as they make their way then onto the final 2 sectors, we can see that all our drivers are a little bit spaced out, and if there's going to be a move, it's going to be a last minute dash into the chicane. And as we look towards the chicane, then it will be Rick who leads our drivers into that chicane. And what about Philo versus Matthew Lambert? Are they close enough from Matthew to make a move? I don't think Matthew's going to go for it here. I think it's too risky, and that 3/10 penalty he's got to burn is going to hold him back. But our race winner then, ladies and gentlemen, having led it from start to finish, will be the Dutchman of Rick, making amends for race number 1. Rick does it. He brings home the win in race number 2. And coming out of that final corner, it is going to be the Brit of Philo ahead of Lambert. Although I say that, is Lambert going to get across the line? No, Luke Mitchell in P4, Sparks in P5, Luke Doherty in P6, Sir Burtis in P7, who just manages to burn off his penalty, had a Neutron Storm and Reset to Track, Edge in P10, and it's D-Cast in P11, Discover in P12, and then last but not least our drivers running out of the circuit, out of our drivers who are still active, it will be Martin Jallo9 who will be bringing home P13 after a instant field race for Martin. And of course we do have that retirement of D10 Piper where they couldn't get the car back out of the pits. There were technical issues with the car, which is very unfortunate. It's our first retirement that we've seen of the season thus far in terms of retirement mid-race, but Martin brings us across the line then, and then we just have to wait for the countdown with what is 1.5 minutes remaining. But what a cracking race, and well done to this man here. Rick just leading it from start to finish. He wasn't the fastest guy on circuit. The fastest lap went again to Sparks Fury, with 2:02.5, pretty much a match in his qualifying time, albeit only being, I think, a couple thousandths off of the pole lap. Philo did a very good job to cut his way through the field, and I think the driver of that race was Philo, just cutting his way through the field up to P4 on lap number 1. I think there were a lot of incidents between drivers and he capitalised on them, but Philo found his way through, and then Matthew Lambert followed through, and I think Matthew for me is going to be my driver of the day, literally chasing the Alien League drivers down and in a class of his own in Division 1 tonight. Well, how the tables have turned, and Matthew will be very pleased for these points today, because that's going to put him right at the top of Division 1. And congratulations to all of our drivers, but congratulations to Rick from the Netherlands once again for the victory. So there's our race results, ladies and gentlemen, subject to any stewards' inquiries or decisions. Rick bringing home the win by 5.7 seconds ahead of TNR Philo, and Matthew Lambert rounding out our podium. Wasn't able to get the move done on Philo in race number 2. Mitchell once again bringing it home in P4. 2 back-to-back P4s for Luke tonight. A good set of results. And Sparks bringing it home in P5. He'll avoid to be on that podium, but I think he'll take that P5 all the same. Our fastest lap, of course, being set by Sparks on lap number 5. A good way to end tonight's racing for the British driver. Now, it is a provincial point to ask our drivers if they're up for any post-race interviews. But before we do, we are just going to log the results once again. So if you give us a brief breather, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back very shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we're back once again and see if we've got anybody available to post-race interviews. There's a cracking load of racing, but I think there are going to be some inquiries with our stewards for some of the incidents that happened at the start of each race. The driver, Phil Foremost, in all honesty, was the skiver in the fact that pretty much at the start of both races, he seemed to be going sideways and spun around coming out of the Mercedes arena in either case. And it was a very difficult evening. We're just going to double check. Because we have had a number of drivers leave the lobby, which is understandable. So a number of drivers do have to go immediately after this racing because they've got other appointments to attend to, which is understandable. And we're just going to check our notes very quickly. It doesn't look as though we're going to be getting any post-race interviews tonight, folks. Nobody's put themselves forward. So as a result, we are just going to let them know we're going to close the show, and then we will be bringing this to a close. There was some fantastic racing tonight, some great battling, and also some shock moments and surprise results. And I think there's plenty of talking points down at the paddock, and I think there's going to be a lot of questions raised with regards to some of the battling. But nonetheless, good racing had by all. And thank you once again to our Alien League drivers and our Division 1 drivers tonight. I've been your host, Paul TX141 Walsh, or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. Thank you for tuning in. Next time out, well, we will surprise you with the circuit, of course, on a weekly basis. But we'll be back the same time next week for some more intense action within the next-gen Racing FASTR BMW M4 League. But until then, stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and as always, remember to stay on track. Good night and happy Easter, folks.